I'm gonna debate the way you guys were reared and the way we were reared. So, anyway, so I didn't know it was 59 years, but what can you say about a guy who was married, 59 years when I think the average American today is married 8? He raised 5 kids. 3 obviously brought up were adopted. I don't know how many stillbirths came out of that, but when Mom asked for me to speak, give a eulogy, I said, well, most of the time when you give a eulogy or you speak, it's like right after the death. So now here we are 6 weeks later. So there's difference of feelings and opinions and grievings and those kind of things. But I can tell you that over the past 15 years, it's kind of like Groundhog Day. Ever since he was given last rites in Birmingham 4 years ago, so you say goodbye. So every time you see him, you say goodbye. Well, what happens in the movie of Groundhog Day? You say goodbye over and over again, and the same day reoccurs. So 6 weeks ago or so, that kind of ended. But anybody that knew Dad he was a fighter, and he was a fighter really up until the end. And I truly believe that the only reason he was staying alive was Mom, so that someone would take care of her. So as a family, we elected that you're going to move with Michael to Texas. We'll tell you about that after the today. So
do I get to take my $1 million with me?
Whatever he left you, you can take.
No, from you.
That wouldn't be me. So before I discuss Dad, it's really hard to fathom what my mom went through over the past 15 years with his multiple illnesses. Anybody that knows a Fagan family person, especially on our side, knows that being married to one's not really easy. You just have to ask Mary Beth. Good and bad, but to see her man, and it's funny when you look at the pictures here, there he is right there. My God, I probably drove that Volkswagen.
No,
didn't have air conditioning.
That was the first one.
That was the first one? Okay.
Yeah, we wore out 3.
So that's the guy, right? She met the guy when she was a kid. He wore fatigues. He was full of shape, in shape, full of life. And then over years, it just deteriorated. So I can't really imagine what, her studly man, especially sporting that beautiful mustache. There you go. Perfect one, right? This is good. Feet along with it. Anne Marie's on there. So it had to be easy. So I know when they took their marriage vows, they kept them. So she suffered most of all. And, for my dad, God blessed him with her. So with that, she was his rock. Over the years, there's so many people to thank that assisted, and the names are far too many to mention. A lot of them I don't even know. I can't tell you how many times I call from wherever, and there's a new caretaker because my mom threw the other one out. So being married to a Fagan, it's not just the guys that have issues, it's the females too. Jean knows that too. So, but the family and the friends, the neighbors, caretakers, nurses, dog walkers, doctors, we thank you from the depths of our souls that, you were there to care for my mom and my dad when we were just out being kids. So over the past year, I think I've attended like 12 or 13 wakes or funerals. And some have been easier than others. But I've often, what are you supposed to say? Are you supposed to give hope, something inspirational, comfort? Well, I want to tell a story because, Dad was always a really good storyteller, as a lot of Irish guys are. A lot of it's from the alcohol, though, I think. Larry, Southside Irish, we could probably attest to that, right? The more you drink, the more you stay. You hear last call?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. But he was part of the Board of Ed. And anybody who knows any of those stationary engineers, they could all tell great stories. So knowing that there are so many personal stories that are never going to be told because, that's my relationship with him. I want to keep it private. Maybe it's being selfish, but he's my dad. And just like I wouldn't understand some of the stories you had with your dad. So there's going to be no Facebook postings of this story or that story. maybe some political stories, Mom, but we don't want to get into that today.
No,
So, Janet, that was for you. And, I want to share a story that I think could show his and portray his humility that he had. And the one I'm going to share is about my dad and the love of the Chicago Bears. And the reason I bring that up is anybody that knows him was he loved two football teams, Notre Dame and the Bears. And that was it, So each year, Connor and Patrick, where are my boys? Are they hiding? They're there right there. Okay. We'd jump on a plane and we get to go north without Mom. And we would come up, we go to a Notre Dame game on Saturday, and we go to a Bears game on Sunday. He was so proud of being a grandfather. He would always say they're really, really good looking. And then he would say, well, they got Mary Beth's looks. I didn't know how to take that, right? So obviously I think they're good looking guys. Kay Terrell thinks Patrick's a good looking guy. Emma thinks Connor's a good looking guy. But it's poignant that tomorrow's a Bear-Packer game. And he would have loved to watch or hear about it. Chicago being through and through, so proud Irish, and always talking about the Bears and what goes with it. So ever since we were kids, the Bears games would be on TV. And of course, we didn't have, our TV probably was like a quarter of the size of that thing, so you couldn't even see the field, right? Or we listened to it in the car or on some crappy radio that he had at a side job. So, where's Ronnie? He said he went to work with him. Well, on Saturdays and Sundays, we would go do these side jobs. And he had this little transistor radio that he always listened to the Bears games on, and he couldn't really talk because the game was on. So that's okay. So it's 2006, and his brother Ed just had passed. And so I was coming into town with the boys on Saturday, September 30th, and Notre Dame was playing Purdue. So that morning, we load up into the Town and Country that he bought from me. I didn't make any money on it, but I probably should have because I paid for some of it. But it's not always being in the car with my dad when you're the driver, right? Because he's got to tell you what to do. The good thing is he had two little grandkids that he really loved with him to keep him busy. Then we get to the game, and it's warm, and it's uncomfortable on the benches. And Connor and Patrick really didn't want to be there. Because it's hot, and they didn't have iPhones back then, or Facebook, or Instagram, or Snap, but they didn't really want to do that. But he was in his glory. Anybody that never knew my dad, Notre Dame was like a sanctuary to him. So we had great seats with his family, and of course, Touchdown Jesus was there. His team won easily. I don't even know the score. They played Purdue, so it was kind of a gimme game. But that was good. But we had a surprise the next day for him. We didn't let him know until that morning, but we had Pat Ryan's skybox on the 50-yard line for the Bear Seahawks game. And from the moment that we parked in the private garage and taking the elevator upstairs, he had a grin on his face. And he was wearing his tan sleeveless sweater, Bears sweater, that God only knows where it is now. I'm sure it's still here somewhere. And a Bears hat. And the game was a blur for me mainly because I think I was drinking too. But the Bears beat the Hawks by 4 touchdowns, I think. But I remember before the game, he was sitting, and if you've ever been to the New Soldier Field, it's in the skybox. It's really spectacular for football. And he was sitting in the front row by himself. Knucklehead 1 and 2, Connor and Patrick, were running around. They ate a jar, I'm not kidding you, this big of M&Ms, plain M&Ms. So just imagine at that age what kind of sugar high they're on. But he's sitting by himself, and he's calling all his friends that he works with at the board on a flip phone. Now, I thought at that point he didn't even know how to use a phone, because he never sent an email, never sent a text, and he had a flip phone. And so I just kind of sat back a little bit, and I really haven't talked the story through with anybody, but he was grinning from ear to ear, and because he had not a care in the world. So here's this humble guy who gave everything to everybody else. Now he gets to be braggadocious, and he's telling his friends how cool it is, and he's pointing out to the stadium and everything like that. I'm just back there laughing because I felt that was really cool, because that's something that we're accustomed to today. You sit in skyboxes, you go to the nice places, and he didn't have any of those things. When we would go to Bears games as kids, we didn't always have the best seats. I don't know where he found the tickets, but they weren't really good. So, but for him, that was a great day. He's with his grandkids that he loved. He's with me. He get to see his Bears, And he got all the free food and free drink, and he even mentioned 15 times that there's a private bathroom in there. So he can go do whatever he wants with his hands above the covers there, Ronnie. Okay? That's what that was for, but I think everybody got the picture of that. Just to see him smile, to see him at that place, and reminiscing that for that one moment, here's a guy who gave everything for us. Now, as I said before, I don't share many stories. If you really want to hear about the Super Bowl trip, that's for another story, because a few months later, my mom made mention, and we paid handily for tickets. You did.
And if he ever knew, he would have died then.
Absolutely. And she said, can you get him one ticket? Because he said the Bears might never be in the Super Bowl again when he's alive. And obviously it was true. So guys, that's the story with Dad and the Bears, along with a little bit of Notre Dame stuck in there. So when anybody thinks about Ron Fagan, football comes to my mind. I often wonder, what did he look like in his uniform? What it was like for him to play for St. Ignatius or play for St. Joe's. And that's probably one of the reasons why we go to football games today. I get to sit with my kids for 3-4 hours. Although it irritates me, I know, just like any of the other parents out there, that they live on those phones, but that's their livelihood, right? So that's what they do. But tomorrow at noon, when you're thinking of the Bear-Packer game, I'm sure Dad's upstairs watching it with Walter Payton, Brian Piccolo, Sid Luckman. So hats off to my dad, who always put everybody first.